like to welcome everyone to another CMC podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the MRA, or the Mountain Rescue Association. And joining us to tell us more about the MRA, we have Doug McCall. Doug, would you like to introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit more about you?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. My name's Doug McCall. I'm the current president of the Mountain Rescue Association. Just about myself. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. Moved out to Seattle to do an internship. Fell in love with the area, and my cousin took me climbing. My first alpine ascent was Mount Shuckson, and we did that and was just immediately hooked from there. So been out climbing probably in the Cascades for probably about over 25 years now. Used to be a volunteer firefighter. Started at age 16 at a cadet program and loved the idea of helping people, and then fell in love with the mountaineering and wanted to figure out a way to put those two things together. And one of my buddies who's a volunteer firefighter also was in Seattle Mountain Rescue and said, "Hey, you should probably come take a look at the Seattle Mountain Rescue." So that's what I did, and have been a Mountain Rescue member since 2008, and recently became the president of the Mountain Rescue Association in 2020. Sorry. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Excellent. It's always good having another fire guy in the podcast here.
Yeah.
So next we have Monty Bell. Monty, do you want to tell our audience a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm not a fire guy, so I hope that doesn't disqualify me from the meeting. So I'm Monty Bell. I'm a 30-plus year member of San Diego Sheriff's Mountain Rescue Unit here in California. I'm also the current membership chairman for the Mountain Rescue Association. I'm also a past president of the Mountain Rescue Association and a past president of NASAR, which is the National Association for Search and Rescue. I'm also the current program manager for the MRA mission database, and along with the being program manager for the California Office of Emergency Services mission database as well. And I got into search and rescue. Kind of an interesting story. I'm an Eagle Scout, and also a avid outdoors person. And one year after, in my early 20s, I was out on a hunting trip in Colorado and got myself lost and spent the night in a snowstorm out there, and was found the next day by a search and rescue crew. And I figured I wasn't going to let that happen again. And so I quickly found the closest search and rescue team in San Diego, joined it, and learned everything I could. And thank God I haven't gotten lost again. So it seems to be working out.
Excellent. Well, you just redeemed yourself that you're a fellow Eagle Scout, so that's good. So I'll give you a pass on the fire thing. So.
Good.
So, and then last but not least, a familiar voice, but now kind of in a little bit of a new context with this subject, John McKently.
Yeah, my name's John McKently, and I too am not a firefighter. I too am an Eagle Scout, and I have never been lost in the subject of a search and rescue mission. So we have similarities in things that aren't quite the same. My background is I just retired as a school director for CMC Rescue. I'm still involved teaching classes for both CMC and California State OES. But when I was active in search and rescue, which again was just a recent change in my life after 47 years, which has been very, very difficult to give up. And I guess I haven't because I'm on this podcast. But I was a member of a mountain rescue team for that time, the Montrose Search and Rescue Team in Los Angeles County, California. It's one of 8 rescue teams in LA County, which probably has the record for the most teams in a county. But I'm back, that, and I think in full disclosure that I should say that I've been part of that fine organization for a long time, and it'll probably come out again from either Doug or Monty, but one is not a member of the MRA, particularly as an individual. Yeah, you get a card, but it's really the team that is the member of the organization and you're a member of a team. So I don't know if they want to go into that process a little bit later, but have been involved with the MRA for, like I said, almost 50 years.
Excellent. Thanks, John. So, Doug, maybe do you want to start us out a little bit? Tell us a little bit about the history of MRA and just a little bit more about the organization.
Yeah, sure. So, Mountain Rescue Association really started. It was officially incorporated in 1959, but it started a little bit before that. There were teams that started kind of in the Seattle area. There's also the Hood River Crag Rats and even Portland Mountain Rescue. And I'm speaking to the Northwest. That's what I'm most familiar with. So I apologize if I miss anyone. I know Sierra Madre was around. They're celebrating their 70th year this year. But we started out and helping people in the mountains. People would get a call and someone would go help. And then there were a couple missions on Mount Rainier where somebody needed help and the call went out, and a lot of people came from different areas and different backgrounds. And you didn't necessarily know who was really qualified to be in the upper mountain on Mount Rainier. And so a lot of things happened that teams got together who, Omi Diber and Dr. Otto Trott, who were in the Seattle area, started to work with the Portland Mountain Rescue folks and the Hood River Crag Rats to say, hey, we need a way to say who should be responding to these missions in this technical terrain, who should be in the upper mountain, and who should we kind of look at and say, yeah, maybe we're not feeling as good about them as climbers, so maybe they can have another function. But operating in the upper mountain in the technical terrain, they needed a way to make that happen, or to recognize who was legitimately able to operate in that. And so they started what's called the Mountain Rescue Association and they incorporated it in Mount Hood. And there was kind of one thing between Portland and Seattle. Seattle at the time was called Mountain Rescue Council. And Mount St. Helens kind of sits about right in the middle between Seattle and Portland. And this gave us an opportunity to work together to say, if you were a mountain rescue team, it means you've proven yourself, or you're now accredited. What we're now doing accreditation in technical rock, snow and ice, and search techniques. You get to wear the Mountain Rescue patch, and that patch, when you showed up on missions, and even today, when I show up on a mission, I see a MRA logo patch or a Mountain Rescue patch. I know that person is capable of operating in technical terrain. I know that they may not have the same rigging systems that my team uses, but we can figure it out very, very quickly. The functions are about the same. So we incorporated in Mount Hood, MRA incorporated in Mount Hood 1959, and we now have, I think, over 90 teams across the country with over 3,000 members as part of those teams. And so I think that's kind of a high-level background. Monty or John, I'm sure I missed some stuff, but feel free to jump in where I missed.
I think you covered it pretty well, Doug. John, you got anything to add on that one?
No, I don't. I think that's a good thing. And I think the important part there, aside from just being a nationwide organization, is that, and you guys might want to go into it more, is the accreditation process for the team and the continual or reaccreditation process. Well, it's not the same for every region. I think that's important to know, for people to know, that it's not just a one-time deal, but it's a continual process to make sure that everybody's still up to speed and they're not just resting on their laurels.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, and Doug, by the way, I just went to Riverside Mountain Rescue's 60th anniversary on Saturday. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
There you go. Yeah, you mentioned Sierra Madre. I got the invitation for their 70th.
Yep.
Our team's 70th was 3 years ago, and so you've got some longtime teams, a member of the organization since almost the beginning. Our team came in just a couple of years later, but the teams have been around for a long time, doing a lot of good work. And yet, Monty, you might talk about it as for new teams. That we continually get applications and teams are continually joining the organization.
Yeah, maybe can one of you, either Doug or Monty, do you want to kind of go through what that accreditation process is? So if somebody comes in as a new team, what do they actually go through from a testing and an accreditation standpoint?
Yeah, no, excellent question. So when a team first applies, and really the main reason teams want to join the Mountain Rescue Association is because they do seek that accreditation, right? So that puts them at a level, as Doug mentioned, to wear the prestigious blue patch, which helps elevate their ability in search and rescue. And the great thing about the accreditation process is it's peer reviewed, right? So you're not self-testing; you're actually being evaluated by other teams that are saying whether you're meet the qualifications or not. So when a team comes to join, depending on what region they're located in, because every region has a little bit of different flavor on the specifics that are geared towards that particular region, right? So things we do here in California are a little bit different than things they do up in the Pacific Northwest, and a little bit different than they do in the desert mountain regions. So the national has a set of guidelines of certain proficiencies that you need to be proficient at, but the specific details is really up to the local region to determine what that is for that particular region. And so what usually happens is the team, after they apply, they're usually teamed up with another mentor team in that particular region that sort of walks them through and trains with them specifically what the testing is going to look like, and really assess their skills on the onset to see, are they going to be ready to be able to take the test? And for most teams, it takes them about a year to be able to go through the various applications to understand what the test is going to be in that particular region. And then at that point, the mentoring team will usually recommend to the region that this team is ready to go and ready to test, and then they'll test. And they can either test in all of the three different specific venues, which is the search management, technical snow and ice, and technical rock. They can either do all three at once, depending, again, on their region requirements, or, as we do here in California for the most part, we'll just test you in one discipline at a time. And usually it's a full day venue, and it's usually a scenario that, like here in California, for example, we'll do a live scenario where if it's a missing person or it's a technical rescue, where we'll actually have a subject that you'll need to go and locate. You'll need to assess the situation. You'll need to set up all your proper anchors and assess the individual. There's a medical component that's required as well. And then all the other work that goes along that. Same thing for snow and ice. So it's not easy. Most teams do not pass the first go around. Usually takes them a couple tries to get it, even though they've been practicing for a year. And that doesn't mean that particular team isn't good or qualified by no means. It just means that the bar is set fairly high. And anytime you're dealing with a peer review type of system, you're going to have other teams that are going to be critically watching you, and they're going to, assess you, and rightfully so, to make sure that, you've checked everything off the way it's supposed to be done, and you've done it safely. You've been able to, assess the patient and, administer medical and whatever that needs to get done. But again, as Doug pointed out earlier, once you go through, your team has gone through all of those different scenarios, those different accreditations, and now you can wear the blue patch. We see you up on a hill somewhere, and I know that if you're tying the anchors up above, and I don't know you other than I know you're on another team, it happens to be an MRA team, and you happen to actually have a blue patch on, I know that your skill set is going to be that where I'm going to trust whatever you tie together is I'm going to be able to trust that and be lower down, even though you and I personally have never worked together. But I do know that we have the same testing and background to obtain the blue patch.
So just out of curiosity, is it kind of more of like a JPR system where you basically, like, let's say for hauling systems that the team would have to set up a haul, you don't dictate which specific ones?
Yeah,
as
exactly.
opposed
Yeah.
to a, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to say that, in the technical rescue portion of it, in that of the 3 items, and it comes up again in snow and ice too. Yeah, you're gonna end up, your problem is going to involve a raising system, a lowering system with a patient, and all those sorts of things. So pretty much all the skills are going to be involved. And like Doug mentioned, you may not do it the same way, but and Monty said this too, that it's going to be safe and it's going to work. And the driver behind all of this, and again, Doug mentioned it too, it kind of became almost a mutual aid type of system. When you think about 50, 60, 70 years ago, it wasn't as defined as it is now, but when a team had a problem and they needed additional help, they'd turn around and call other teams, and they wanted to be qualified. And so, and we used to have in California what we used to refer to as an MRA call out, where you get a call up in the Sierra or something, where you had high angle, high altitude, and all the things that come with it. You'd call the MRA teams because you knew who they were qualified, and the MRA teams would turn around and say, yeah, I know these people have these skills, and I'm not saying other people don't have the skills, but they had gone through the extra effort to be tested, to be peer reviewed, and to continue with the process. And that's kind of the reason why it all came together, because there wasn't, and other than the Mountain Rescue Association, there really still isn't any sort of a nationwide standard or anything like that for proficiency on these things. And everybody has said it. It's a big country. Things are done differently. But, we could go to Colorado and have gone to Colorado, and we know when we're working with somebody there's a level of respect and confidence in what everybody's doing.
Yeah, just whether it's Colorado or New Jersey, we have teams in North Carolina. We have a lot of teams on the West Coast, but we know that we can get together with any of those teams, and if somebody from Stowe Mountain Rescue needed additional resources, and they would be willing to wait for folks to fly out from Seattle, we could use them, or vice versa. They could use us, we could use them. They could use us, and the teams are essentially interchangeable in that way, and they just work really well together.
Yeah, and really, what also sets us apart is that not only do you have to go through the accreditation the first time to become a fully accredited team member, but you also need to reaccredit every 5 years. So every 5 years, you've got to do this whole scenario over again, and prove that you've got that same proficiency as a team each time every 5 years. So which adds another level to this whole thing, which is really cool. And even teams like myself, I'm in San Diego, California. People can say, well, geez, San Diego, California. I mean, how much snow and ice do you get in San Diego, California, right? Which is not a lot. However, we do respond, and quite frequently on mutual aids in the state of California, to areas up in LA County, for example, that does have snow and ice. So we have to, our team has to travel, considerable distance just to keep that practicing skill up, so that we can perform not only on our reaccreditation, but that we can perform anytime in between those reaccreditations when we're called on a mutual aid call up in the snowy mountains, even though, down here in San Diego, we get lovely beach weather.
So, and I think, Matt, you just brought up a really good point here, some of the different trainings. So obviously, I think pretty much in any kind of training, we can divide it into pre-COVID and post-COVID, because obviously that changed the way everyone in the nation, if not the world, did things. So maybe if we can start talking about pre-COVID times, what training opportunities were offered through the MRA, or did maybe not even necessarily an MRA sponsored event, but did MRA teams do maybe within multiple teams like mutual aid training or whatever? What's out there?
Typically, the regions will organize training within their region. I know in the Washington region, we'll have one or two mutual trainings a year with all the different teams in the state, and so that's actually really good for us, when we're working together. And then sometimes we'll even do more frequent trainings with teams who are immediately neighboring to us. So Seattle will work with Everett Mountain Rescue and Tacoma, which are both north and south. And we'll also see each other on call outs on Mount Rainier frequently as well. So, and I think I wanted to add one thing to the reaccreditation every 5 years is it's not a given that the teams who are already MRA teams pass that. I've seen teams not pass on certain disciplines, and have to come back and retest and reevaluate after they've had 3 to 6 months to train up again and make sure they're at the level. But that reaccreditation every 5 years, that really kind of puts in the back of your brain that you need to be continually operating at a high level. At the level that you need to be able to pass a peer review at any time. And I would think, for the most part, any MRA team is working at that level to be able to pull off any mission that they're tasked with. So that's kind of I really like that aspect of it. And then we'll have some other mutual aid trainings. Actually, in 2 weeks, we're having a mountain rescue challenge just in Washington, where we're inviting MRA teams in Washington to come do. I think there are 4 different events. There'll be a rigging, a high angle, a low angle, a guiding line or a tracking line, however you want to call that one, and then a medical station. And we're going to have all the full member teams will be participating, and we'll also have some of our ex officio teams. NAS Whidbey Island, the Navy helicopter. That they're not going to bring their helicopter; they're going to bring their people. So I was trying to be on that team so we could get a little bit of a cheat on, but they're going to be there, just working with us, just as we do. As if we were to be on a mission on the side of a mountain, if they were to fly in, they're gonna want to know that they can trust us and we can trust them, and we're always working well together on that. So, yeah,
excellent. Yeah, Monty, what about down by you?
Yeah, well, so the great thing about California, probably the only good thing about California, the MRA teams, is that we actually do, for our reaccreditation, right, instead of doing all 3 disciplines at one time, which makes it, as I said earlier, a little bit problematic here in California because of the weather, we actually do one of our reaccreditations each year. So every 3 years, or on the 4th year, is when we reaccredit again. So we all get together as MRA teams once a year, and it's a big event because we have anywhere from 300 to 400 people that show up at one of our reaccreditations, because we have 22 teams, and if everybody's from all the way up in Northern California, and they all come down, and we meet somewhere in a location where the discipline is going to be at, and then so because of that, we end up getting such a gathering of people that we get together. We get to not only do our separate reaccreditation at that particular time, but we also get to do a lot of networking. There's a lot of other sidebar conversations going on. Some side trainings are going on. Teams are getting together and planning other events where 2 teams are going to come together and do some sort of a training together in the coming months. And so it's a great event that we get to do that that here in California that is unlike all the other regions. And so that really brings all of us together to be able to kind of share different information and we usually make a long weekend out of it. So, we usually having a dinner barbecue in the evening, people get together, more conversations about rescues and things that are happening. So that's one of the things that we've done here in California for decades, and that's worked out really well. And then the teams themselves, a lot of them are, very familiar. Example, our adjacent team is Riverside Mountain Rescue here in San Diego. Riverside's the adjacent county to us. And I was just saying earlier that I was just at their 60th anniversary dinner on Saturday. But we also train, for example, with Riverside a lot, and all the other LA teams I know train together, and they do a lot of different joint trainings together. And again, you were talking about pre-COVID, so we're all just getting back into what training looks like now. Now that we're into COVID, because we've are all just kind of feeling that way out. But yeah, pre-COVID, we were extremely active. During COVID, and even right now, we're starting to gear back up again. Some teams faster than others, but it just depends on the location. Northern California is kind of slowing down a little bit because COVID is a little bit more rampant up there than it is down here in Southern California, where it seems to kind of went by the wayside a little bit, at least as far as the activity. So more teams down here are getting together and training. Like our team is back in full force training every once a month like we used to.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. Other than the recertification, the 2021 recert got nuked because of COVID, Doug. But actually, it was about the last thing that happened. Mm-hmm. It was kind of touchy in 2020. It was search and tracking. And we did it, and it was like, the shutdown came like that next day almost. Yep. But we got it in there, and of course that's the advantage of doing it every 3 years instead of every 5 years, is because we've got a little slop in there. And if we miss a year like that, usually what happens is we miss it because we don't have any snow. But
right.
Monty kind of says down here, and when you're in San Diego, it's always everything's down. But many times the only place for snow, it's a long travel for, like Monty says, to San Diego. We've had a lot of the snow and ice research have been in the Tahoe Basin, which is for him 8 or 9 hours. For us, it was about 6. But there's a lot of people to get together, and it's hard to even find a place to do it, let alone organize it. As far as the individual teams go, like as an LA County team, as I mentioned, there's 6 MRA teams in Los Angeles County, and immediately adjacent to us, Orange County, Ventura County has 2 teams. San Bernardino County matches right up to us. And while we might get together for trainings, more than anything else, we're getting together because we have mutual aid calls. Yeah. COVID did not do anything to slow down our activity. Mm-hmm. Fires and forest closures, a little bit here and there. But the activity levels from all the teams, and Monty's going to talk about stats in a few minutes, but the activity levels, at least for our teams in Los Angeles County, did not go down at all due to COVID. And so all of our activities really didn't, we didn't have visitors to team meetings. We were a little slower to do some of that recruitment and some of those things where you're dealing more with the public on a more of a non-emergency basis when you had a choice, if I guess is the way to work it. But as far as response to calls, training, our team does patrols, all of that continued just like it always did because the people were still out there. In fact, the call volumes, I believe, went up because they were kind of cooped up and didn't have any place else to go, so they tended to go to a local area. And so COVID impacted us in some ways, but it never was a matter of slowing things down or stopping things or anything like that.
Well, it's interesting, and I would imagine that more people were getting outside because that was one of the few things that could, but unfortunately it probably didn't make them any more prepared than when they went out.
Yeah, I don't want to say my usual things, but yes, they were pretty much the same as always.
Yeah.
COVID didn't make them look at the weather forecasts or take water on hot days or anything like that.
Well, and it's kind of interesting. I'm glad you brought up the point too about snow in LA County because from somebody who comes from the Midwest, I got to tell you, I really don't associate LA County with snow.
You
But
got to
in
remember
fact-
that the border between Los Angeles County and San Bernardino County is at Mount San Antonio, which is almost 10,000 feet. And we have a road in my team's area that gets up at almost 8,000 feet. So, and Malibu doesn't get snow in their area, just like San Diego doesn't get a lot of snow in their area, but that doesn't stop them from calls, and it doesn't stop them from mutual aid assists. So, we don't get as much snow as we used to. I don't know if that's global warming or what, but it's still there. And the reason for it, Doug said it, Monty said it, is for mutual aid. We may be in the county, like Orange County doesn't get any snow, San Diego doesn't get any snow, but there's a lot of really rugged, steep, high mountains in Southern California that a lot of people forget about.
Yep.
And you got a population base, depending on where you draw the line, of 20 million people to get up there and get into trouble.
And as they would say, that is the recipe and several ingredients for disaster. So,
There you go.
Absolutely.
yeah. So actually, John, you brought it up, and maybe that could be a nice lead in here. Maybe Monty, if you could talk about your stats program, because I think there's some valuable data that can come out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the MRA started our stats program really back in about 2014. We started doing some testing on a new platform to be able to gather the information. Prior to 2014, all of our teams were turning in all of their mission data. In other words, how many missions they've gone on, what type of mission, what were the people that they were looking for, what were they, hunters, hikers, and some basic information. And it was really everything they could populate on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. They would mail it into the MRA, and then we would basically take that information and data entry that into a giant Excel spreadsheet. And we were doing that for decades. And it was good information, but it wasn't necessarily information that was being utilized and for us to be able to have an impact or be able to disseminate to the public. So about 2014, myself and a couple other people sat down and on the back of a napkin, we kind of sketched out, literally over a beer and a napkin, we kind of sketched out what, if we could reinvent the wheel, what would be the best way to be able to gather this information and put it down so that not only would it be meaningful, but we could, show it to the public. Teams could show it specifically on what they're doing in their area. And so, what did that look like from a spatial type of analysis? And so we were able to partner with Esri, which is a GIS publisher of software, and they basically helped us get this thing geared up. And ever since then, we've been collecting information from our teams and then posting that information up. Not only is it available on the MRA.org website there on our front page, but there's a easy dashboard there that will show you the data that we've collected this particular way since 2018. We have all of that information there. You can look at it by year. You can look at it by type of activity that the person was hunting or fishing or whatever they were doing. It also shows it on the map, a location of where these incidents are. And so, we're finding that, it's becoming an extremely popular and valuable resource, not only for our own internal teams, because up until now, up until then, we knew we were going on a lot of missions, but we never really had all the data in one place. And so we didn't have things like, for example, how many hours of volunteer hours are we putting in to contribute to looking for people? Obviously there's a dollar figure for that. I mean, even though we're all volunteers, but if you were to say, well, if we were going to, if a county or a city was going to, pay for people to do this, what would this look like, right? Well, you can quantify that, that way. Also, how many volunteer miles are driven, right? Because for work or other things, you're allowed to get reimbursements back. We don't necessarily get those reimbursements, but they do have a cost. So you can show how much money that we're actually saving the public by doing all of this volunteer work. Plus, you can also get down into, who are the subjects that we're really looking for? What are they actually doing? And how can we impact and help mitigate that risk. In other words, what kind of preventative search and rescue type of activities do we need to get involved in our state, in our county level, to say, look, we're, our particular area, we're looking for this particular person at this age group. That's our clientele. That's our demographic. So how do we reach out to that group and help them be better prepared, so that we don't have to go look for them, on Sunday evening or Monday morning. And then, all the other different information that we can gather by collecting that and then being able to analyze it has been extremely powerful. I mean, even from fundraising activities, the teams are able to use this at a local level to show their county board of supervisors or the other politicians on what their county is contributing, what their team is contributing to the local area. We can show that from a regional standpoint. We can show that from a nationwide standpoint on the impact of the MRA as a whole. But it's been a very powerful tool of gathering information and doing things with it. So powerful that other entities, as I mentioned earlier, the state of California, California Office of Emergency Services, they adopted the same exact program that we're doing. They found they used to also do an old paper gathering of statistics for the different counties. They saw this as an opportunity, so they've adopted this same exact model, asking the same kind of questions. The state of Vermont is also looking at this. New Jersey is looking at this as well. And the National Park System adopted something very similar. They used to do an old Excel spreadsheet, and they saw what we were doing over here. And it was interesting. I was at listening to a keynote speaker who was actually showing from the National Park System Service that was actually showing what they were doing. And they actually gave credit that they actually, I don't want to say stole this idea from us, but they copied this idea from the Mountain Rescue Association, and now they're doing it from the national park side. So it's been really cool.
Well, a couple of things you said really stood out, and I think one of the first thing that really stood out is you're using this as basically to identify kind of who your demographic is that you're going out on for the prevention. That's very interesting, I think, and that I would imagine it's a huge difference whether you're primarily going after hunters versus mountain bikers, hikers, so on. Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the things the Mountain Rescue Association flat out says is mountain safety and education is the goal, and obviously we're going to go if people need the services, but it's prevention size worth more than the it's better to prevent the incident than to occur. You're always going to have enough calls, and but that's one of the challenges or charter reasons for the organization is prevention.
That's excellent. Yeah, they say the best rescue is one that never happens, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
And just to jump right into that PSAR, we were able to take the stats from the stats tool that the membership committee and stats committee came up with, and drive we have an online training course or training platform, which we call the MRA Basecamp. Sorry, it's an old quick plug here, but all the stuff is free. It's just that actually the plug is the more people use it, the better. But we were able to develop some courses that directly reflected, reaching the people who we learned or we think actually had the need. And so in that base camp, there were I think it's a general backcountry safety course that we created that actually launched earlier this year, and it's a very, very thorough course, and it certainly doesn't beat going out and learning the skills and knowing how to be in the backcountry, but it gives you that core foundational information so that when you do go out, you go with something in mind. You know what the base, we talk about the 10 essentials. I mean, not only do you have those, but you have like a really good understanding about how to utilize those and why you need them. Like I can have a map and a compass, but if I don't know how to use either, they're useless. So yeah, I just wanted to jump in on that because it reminded me, we launched a couple classes.
It is one step better than having a cell phone with no service, though.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
No, good point. And Doug, the other thing that we do, and it just came to my mind because I actually just provided this information to our medical committee, but teams are also, the information we also collect is, what type of medical injury is the person that we're looking for or we find? What kind of medical injury did this person actually have? So that we can actually start to gear our medical training per team based on what's really happening, right? It's great to train, but to the umpteenth level. But in reality, we're all volunteers. We all have day jobs, and so there's this finite amount of time, time for training. So let's gear our training, especially on the medical side, specifically these are the specific injuries that our clientele is having in the backcountry, and let's train to that level so that we know that we'll be better prepared to tackle those instances, and so that's been another great benefit about collecting all of this information, along with something that I completely forget about that because we're still working on the details of that on the back end. But we've also been collecting the lost person behavior. So in other words, people that we go out on a search for, when we find that person, we collect the data. Where did we find them? How far away from from where they were missing? And we gather that information so that now we can actually be able to produce that information locally and regionally to say, if a person is in this type of terrain and they go missing, and they're a hiker, there's been a 90% chance that they have been found in this particular area. So if you've got limited resources, let's deploy them initially to that area. We do have some of that information, but that information we currently utilize is actually old information. It's information that was gathered in the early 70s, and that's the most latest and greatest information that's out there. Well, there's another publisher out there that has some information too, but we're actually gathering our own information so that these teams can say, hey, where do we normally find somebody when they go down this one particular drainage? We typically always find them here, and here's the data that shows that.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the medical thing too, because you guys really do operate under some very different protocols, especially in the backcountry where, in a more urban environment or like in a fire or third-party EMS background, we're used to, transporting from the time you make patient contact to the time you get to the hospitals, 20, 30 minutes. Or for you guys, it could be literally a day or
Days.
two.
Yeah.
I mean, the protocols you guys operate under are significantly different and significantly greater challenges.
And a lot of that is going to depend on the local team. A lot of these things are tempered by local conditions, and not only search and rescue conditions, but also the local protocols in the counties. The big urban counties have highly developed full-time medical a medical system, and they are going to be the primary EMS provider. And in a rural county or someplace further out, they may not have the manpower, they may not have the expertise to be able to do it. So it's really varied. And of course, Monty and I from California, it's going to be different from us and Doug in the Seattle or in Washington State, and certainly going to be different than the guys on the East Coast in Carolinas, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, or New England. But that's something that's going to vary throughout the team, but we may be it, and it is also going to depend on what the level of medical training is for the individuals on the team. Are going to be dictated by the county. Like in Los Angeles County, EMT is the lowest standard of care. So all the Los Angeles County teams are required to be EMTs, whereas that's not necessarily the case in another county because of people don't expect the same level of service or the same level of expertise. It's not to say one's right or wrong, but it's just something else that people have to keep up on. Aside from the mountain rescue type of skills, search and tracking and technical and everything like that is also that medical component, because once we find them, they're ours until we can pass them off to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we've had we've had people that have come from an EMS background and joined our team, And then, when we've actually gone out on a call and we've had to spend the night with somebody out in the backcountry and they're, got a fractured femur and, all we have is a couple of small med bags, because we've had to hike in, for 4 or 6 hours to get to the location to find the person, assess them. And all we got is a small medical bag, some duct tape and some wire to put this person back together for 24 hours. For some people that's not used to that, it's definitely a challenge for them to say, geez, I'm used to going right into my ambulance and pulling this out and doing this. It's like, no, what you have is on the back of all of us on the team, and that's all we can put together. And we got to make it work until we can get it right out of here first thing in the morning.
Wow. And I'll say, we are, particularly blessed in the MRA, and we have a medical committee, or MedCom, who are they're ER docs. They're like some of the highest level positions that I know of. Several ER docs. We have a physician who used to be who would be at MRA Basecamp, so familiar with dealing with the high altitude emergencies. But then we also share, that information all gets shared back down to all the teams of how things are going and the best practices, like treating a femur injury in the backcountry. How do we do that? And we get the opportunity to come around and share these presentations and share this other information at our annual spring conference, which is always a great opportunity for us to just all to get together and learn from each other.
And it's kind of interesting too. I'm just kind of sitting back listening to you guys talk, looking at the history of the organization started in 1959. I think it'd be kind of interesting if the founders could jump into the DeLorean with the flux capacitor and kind of jump forward and seeing what you guys are doing now with all the different, still staying true to that core mission, but how you've expanded that to so many teams and so many members nationwide. So I guess the kind of the next logical question is, where are you guys going? What's next on the plans for the MRA?
Yeah, so during COVID, we started off with a program called Third Thursday. It's an online live training over Zoom, and because we couldn't meet, we couldn't have our spring conference. This gave us the opportunity to come together and share knowledge. We've had medical discussions. We've had some rigging discussions. We've had avalanche and awareness and avalanche response discussions. So we're going to continue with our Third Thursday programming. We also have a very robust, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, spring conference. When we can do an in-person conference, that's really one of the I say one of the crown jewels of the MRA is that you get people from all over the country into one in one area, and we can share ideas, and you have like a conference layout. We also have like a mountain rescue Olympics that everyone can participate in at any level that they want to, and it's really that sharing of knowledge that it's hard to replicate, and then you have all that, and then you can get together for beers afterward, and that's when the real knowledge sharing happens at the end of the day. But so we're also, I think we started a diversity and inclusion committee back in 2016. I would say maybe before it was popular, and we're continuing to look into ways to make sure that all of our rescuers and all the team members are being valued for the what they bring to the team. And then we're also, I think this one's close to my heart, is we're looking into a leadership and relationship development committee. In fact, I have a meeting tonight with that committee, and that's really looking at And I think that is one of the paths forward for the MRA is bringing that relationship development to our teams at all levels. And certainly, I think they say all politics is local, but all relationships are local. You've got to be able to work with your sheriff, with your local sheriff, with your local fire department, with other responders as you go through, and be able to trust everyone. We want them to trust us, and we want to trust them as well. But then as we go on into the national level, as we're working with the Park Service and FEMA and other organizations, we want to make sure that they have a good understanding of who we are, but also we want to bring something to the table and develop those relationships. So I would say, and then in the leadership roles of helping teams become better teams by providing leadership principles and really helping our teams to become better teams. So I think that's. I don't have timelines. If you're like, yeah. Well, I do in my mind, but if I share them, then I'm definitely held to them. So.
Well, and now are some of those training opportunities like the Third Thursday series? Is that available to non-MRA members? Like YouTube or your website?
It is. That's good point. We do have we started this year a YouTube channel. In 2020, a YouTube channel that anyone can subscribe to get the latest. When the latest Third Thursday is posted. We initially started Third Thursday with MRA teams only, but we're opening that up to non-MRA teams. Really, we weren't sure. It was kind of a test site, I guess, initially, but now we realize this actually has some legs, and we want to make it available to any rescue teams that are interested. And then one quarter, I guess 1 month out of the quarter, we do a major mission review of MRA. And that's actually a closed session to MRA teams, essentially that's a mission debrief, allows teams who've had a major mission in their area. And pretty much, if you're on an MRA team, there's probably a major mission going on, possibly as we speak. They happen pretty frequently, and it gives us an opportunity to share an open environment to share the lessons learned without, just like as you would coming back off of a house fire or search and mountain rescue mission. You want to do a debrief with your team. Say, hey, what went well? What could we have done different? And let's learn some lessons so we don't repeat any mistakes that may have happened. So that's the only one caveat. But that training will be available. It's on our MRA.org website under training, live training, and then our spring conference. I mentioned that it's open to anyone who wants to join. Our next spring conference is in Estes Park, Colorado. I think it's the weekend of June 10th, 2022, and it's in that week of June 10th, and we expect to have a great turnout there. That Estes Park always is. It's a beautiful area, lots of climbing in the area, but also it really gives us a chance to, as I said, pull together all the teams and learn from those. And I think it's a good opportunity for other non-MRA teams to come and learn about MRA, what we do. But also, if teams are interested in joining, that's also a good time to join as well.
Oh, very good. So I'm looking at the time here. It looks like we're probably need to start wrapping up here. So John, any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, it's been a great ride with the MRA. I think it's been a great organization. I think it's doing the right thing. We didn't get into accreditations and standards or anything like that. Those would be something we can talk about some other time. But one last thing, and just to build on what Doug said, the MRA was involved from the beginning with the International Technical Rescue Symposium. It kind of goes along on the theme of public education and mountain safety and research and all that sort of things. Is the MRA was involved with that from the beginning, still is involved as a co-sponsoring organization. So I want to make sure that people realize that it's not any way it has been, and they're continually looking into things. You talked about, I wonder what the old guys that started it up would have thought, and the missions are the same, but the way we solve the missions is radically different. Just, technical rescue, everything, it doesn't matter what the equipment is. It could be rope and it could be snowshoes, but it's all changed, but we're still doing the same sort of thing. And that's just a bunch of volunteers that want to help people and that are going out and looking for them to try to save lives.
Excellent. Thanks. Monty.
Wow, I think we covered a pretty good array of things here. Anybody that's interested in joining the Mountain Rescue Association, our information is on the MRA.org website. As Doug pointed out, our spring conference in June is a fantastic place to show up. It's going to be a fantastic venue, but just to show up and see what it's all about. I'm always there and would love to talk to people about joining the MRA. You can give me a ring. You can also find my information on the MRA.org website. And then for those that are interested in looking more into the statistics of the MRA, feel free to also find it on the MRA.org website. And if you or your agency or entity is interested in starting the same thing for your particular state, give me a ring and I will connect you to the right people and see if we can get you started on collecting your own information as well. So anyways, appreciate this time. Opportunity has been fantastic. And back to you, Doug.
Excellent. So Doug, you want to close this out here?
Yeah, sure. So I guess a couple of things I want to be sure to convey is that the MRA is made up of professional volunteers. We're a lot of us, we may have day jobs, but we're professional in the rescue work that we do, and it's evidenced by us having to pass these reaccreditations. It's a time commitment, but it doesn't feel like it when you really love it, you enjoy it, and you love being in the mountains and getting a chance to do all this stuff. So, we're super lucky to have such a great, over 3,000 people who volunteer with the MRA or MRA teams, and each one of them are amazing. We appreciate all of their efforts that they do every year. So, I guess that's all I've got.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. And for our listeners, too, we'll make sure if you go to the cmcpro.com to the podcast page, we'll make sure and put links to information about the MRA conference, spring conference in June in Estes, and then also to the website and the YouTube page. So some of the things we've discussed here in the podcast, you'll have easy links to, because I think there's some very valuable resources that you guys have talked about here. So it's been very educational for me. I'm not a mountain rescue guy. From the foothills in Wisconsin, which is basically the ditch out in the front road. I'm jealous. But as soon as you said Estes, my wife and I vacation out there every year. We need to get to the mountains because we don't have anything like that here. So it's very great hearing all of you talk about how well prepared the teams are that cover those areas for the tourists like us that go out there and try to be prepared. That we know we're covered. So thanks again for joining us. And stay tuned for another CMC podcast.